Support for Wrong About Everything comes from Minnesota's credit unions. Credit unions are locally based, member owned financial cooperatives that return earnings to members through higher savings rates, lower loan rates, and reduced fees. Visit mncun.org for more information.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Wrong About Everything podcast. I am GOP strategist and Twin City Sugar, Brian McDaniel.
And the bitch is back again, Javier Morillo.
And we are
Wrong about everything.
It's a lot of sausage today.
Yeah.
It's just me and Javier.
It's just us. I've been away two shows, 3 weeks. I was in Puerto Rico.
How was that?
It was lovely.
What's the weather like there
Hot.
this time of year?
I mean, these days it's always hot. It used to be that December and January was kind of a reprieve. It was like, be cool. But now it's like hot all the time. But my sister recently moved my parents near to her house, and it's close to the water. So it's breezy. It's breezy. So it's lovely.
It's breezy.
Yep. But yeah, that was lovely. And now I'm
back. Of course, it's nice here right now.
Yeah. I road trip to Michigan last weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah. I won't say why, because
I know why. I know why.
And then because I did nothing illegal there, but
no,
might have done something coming back.
Anyway,
and then tomorrow I'm going to Wisconsin to
a cabin.
No, to Madison.
Oh yeah.
You know what for? Hockey. For a hockey game.
You're a hockey family now.
You bitch.
Yeah, I now have. I did you know this, Gabe? Like my white family.
Yes.
They're all hockey players, and our niece, they won the Northeast whatever, and now they're on the next level of whatever
for college.
For college, yeah. And so if they win this weekend, then they're coming to NCAA finals, which will be here, but they have to beat Wisconsin, and that's a big deal. But tomorrow, yeah, I'm doing the most Midwestern thing I've ever done. And John Styles can't come because he has a chorus thing.
Yeah.
So I am driving all the way out there.
Oh, well.
Are you enjoying hockey a little bit?
Yes. No. Yeah. Especially the women are awesome, and our niece is like 6'2". So she is a freaking badass and the funniest thing is when one of the women on the other team tries to bully someone else on Julia's team, and then Julia just gets between them and looks down and like, what? And every single time they're like, nothing. I'm good.
In hockey, they have a word for that.
What?
The nice one is enforcer.
Yeah.
The one that they use more is goon.
Oh yeah.
And it's not a term of derision. It's like every team needs a goon, and the goon protects the other people on the team.
But isn't that person in like men's hockey that person actually beats people up?
Yeah.
Julia just has to show up. Julia has to show up and look down because she's like she's like a full head above most of her the opposing teammates.
She's a super goon. She's that scary.
She's just amazingly talented.
There could be goon-like behavior, but the other teams use discretion.
True.
They make a calculation.
Yeah, but hopefully they'll be coming here to Minnesota for the finals.
That would be very cool. Well, speaking of calculations, we are in the Minnesota Credit Union Network studios, deep within the recesses of MBC Studios. We have Gabe Noah being our handsome and able producer. We want to always direct you to our website, www.wrongabouteverything-podcast.com. We found out at one of our live shows recently that our bios are years.
Oh yeah,
Javier's bio. It was like Javier was born last week. And
it was a little embarrassing when I was introduced as president of Local 26. It's like, oh, that's been a few years.
That's been a number of years, but yeah. So we got to update that. But also go to our YouTube channel. Because hopefully that's where you're watching us right now. But we're trying to beef up our likes and subscriptions there. So please.
Especially since our Facebook page was stolen.
It was stolen. We have to, and we're trying to get it back.
By an evil bakery.
It was it wasn't, that we were talking about that. It was a bakery, which is delicious, but it wasn't a real bakery.
It wasn't a real bakery.
It was just somebody being a jerk.
And then Facebook just took the page down altogether. So.
Because Zuckerberg is being a jerk.
Yeah, well, the oligarchy is. Can't be dealt with.
So, well, and I'm not the biggest conspiracy theory guy, and I don't even think this is a conspiracy theory, but I was wearing Kiss, the band, Kiss socks. I did not discuss my Kiss socks with anyone because we all know our phones are listening to us. But I also think they're obviously watching us because I was sitting on the couch. I had my legs up and I had my phone while I was looking at it, which meant the camera was looking right at my feet. And then I get an ad trying to sell me the exact same socks that I'm wearing.
That's terrible targeting. You clearly already have those
I
socks.
clearly already have them, but also it's like it's just so gross, and I get it. That's the whole point of the app is to sell people stuff. And they're watching us and looking at us.
Well,
And
it'll you know how much worse it's gonna get? Elon Musk is that is his whole deal. That's what he's doing is feeding his AI.
yeah,
There
no,
is like with all the stolen private data. So
for the most.
so your phone's gonna know you even better, people. Like
Well,
there's your phone's gonna know your social security, how much you paid in taxes or didn't, and
well, I always figured that everybody knows all that stuff anyway. But I am getting increasingly like, do I have to buy a gun? Do I have to have food
you
in
don't
my
have a gun.
basement? I don't have a gun.
Huh?
No, I'm the world's worst Republican.
Yes, you are. No.
Because like even though I'm a big Second Amendment guy, I mean I teach it and I believe it, and we can argue about it all we want. But I say if they took away all the guns, they would take away none of my guns because I don't have one. But I do have a new security system, so don't come to my
Don't get
house.
any ideas
Yeah.
just because there's no gun there.
It will beep at you furiously.
Out of your cold, dead hands.
Dead hands. I have a baseball bat. But anyway,
Yeah.
want to talk to about our good friends at Bradshaw and Bryant. Their entire team of attorneys and staff is dedicated to providing the legal advice you need, combined with the service and personal attention you deserve. If you have questions about how they can assist you with a personal injury, wrongful death, or criminal defense matter, please do not hesitate to contact them. Consultations are free. Contact them at 800-770-7008 or at minnesotapersonalinjury.com.
Yeah.
Well, it's election season.
It's sort of.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
they had an election last night.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you've heard us talk a lot about the circuitous route that we have taken in the Minnesota House of Representatives to getting back to a tie. So, kind of here's a little bit of the shorthand on it. After the election, we were at a 67-67 tie between Republicans and Democrats, and a power sharing agreement was negotiated between Speaker Hortman and Speaker Dameth. And then the courts determined that Curtis Johnson, who ran for a seat, he was a Democrat, ran for a seat and won a seat in the Roseville area, that he did not satisfy the residency requirements and would not be allowed to be sat in the Minnesota House of Representatives when they came into session in early January. So that meant that the Republicans had a 67-66 tie, 67-66 lead, which would allow them to pick a speaker and organize committees, which they then attempted to do and did do, except.
Well, they didn't because they didn't have a.
Well, they did it. They just had to undo it.
They picked their own person, but they didn't pick a speaker because there was no quorum.
Well, but
You haven't
that's
picked
what
a
I'm
speaker
getting
until
at,
there's a quorum.
is that they did do that, but ultimately the courts determined that you needed 68 to be to start the proceedings. So while you can pick a speaker with 67 votes, you couldn't start up the legislature. We can debate that, but the courts ruled, and we all are following it now. So anyway, so for a month, the Democrats didn't come to the House and to deny a quorum, and then eventually they did. They determined that they were going to allow Lisa Dameth from Cold Spring up near St. Cloud to be the Speaker of the House for the next 2 years, and that the Republicans would be in charge of the Minnesota committees until March 17th, which is next week. Some of that was contingent on the special election, which also was all messed up. But the special election, which happened last night, the 11th, in which the Democrat in that seat, David Gottfried, did win, which was not a surprise. I mean,
it was not a surprise, but it's interesting because in the fall, Curtis Johnson had won, I think, by he had 70% of the vote. Last night he had 80% of the vote. And you guys so tell me, what was all this stuff with like the worst people in the world trying to act like that they were actually trying to win that seat?
Well, I mean, I think
Uh,
some of it was special elections can get weird
yeah.
because far fewer people in the community vote. That's just the truth of special elections. So in some seats that are definitely red or definitely blue, and this was a definite blue seat, you can sometimes get some weird things that happen in special elections.
So
Like
they were actually trying.
they were trying. What I can
So we
tell.
got 80% of the vote when they were trying. Okay. No, I'm just
Yeah,
saying.
but
Because I actually think it does like because here's what it's more because like last night New Hampshire had elections. I'm not that much of a political nerd, but I work in politics and my the co-director of my program that I manage in at my job, she lives in New Hampshire and she was telling me about elections last night where Democrats outperformed all over the state. They had township elections and all this sort of stuff, which like is a reminder that of this bizarre trend of the last 10 years of the Trump years that like when Trump is on the ballot he brings out people, but then when he's not on the ballot, Democrats, the energy the energy is with Democrats, or with opposing him, and he does and his base does not turn out as much, and then like so the it's going to be a wild 2 years.
yeah. So in I feel like you asked me a question and I was starting to answer it.
I was just asking if they were seriously trying.
I was saying, oh, okay, yeah, because I can remember that when I was staff a million years ago in the House, there was a seat in Brooklyn Park or Brooklyn Center that was open because Darlene Luther passed away, and a Republican, John Jordan, I think his name was, won in an area that was a very solidly blue spot, but the, the the fates aligned and the Republicans won. And I can remember when John
There's one
Jordan.
in Bloomington too, right? When there
Yeah,
was
yeah,
there was
but that one,
that one the both had the same name too.
well, there was weirdness with it because I think it was two Carlsons,
Yeah.
but in that one, the municipal garbage election,
Oh, that's right.
so there actually like was something that like people in the community were kind of exercised about. But with John Jordan, so he wins in this area. He's then elected mid-year in a special election, and one of the other Republican elected officials comes up to him on his first day on the floor and goes, "Don't put anything up on the walls." And he did not stick around. But in any event, so David Gottfried now is the 67th member of the DFL caucus. We are at a tie. So on the 17th of March, the committees are going to go back to a 50-50 split with co-chairs, except for the Fraud, Waste, and Abuse Committee, which is staying in Republican hands, and the Republicans are keeping the speakership. Now, there's a fair amount of power that comes with being the speaker, but not as much as you'd think. So, under any event, the speaker and the
And
majority
the
leader.
rules committee is split in half, right? So that's the critical
And
thing because
that's a big deal.
they determine what gets on
Which bills come up.
which bills come up.
And also, well, even if it didn't, so let's just say the Republicans bring up bills that are abhorrent to Democrats, they can't pass
They
a
can't
bill
pass a bill.
without a Democrat because you
Well,
need 68 votes.
which is why like them spending the last 2 weeks not just moving bills that were not going to get 68 votes, but just moving bills that won't get a hearing when the rules committee is split is 6-6, and so because it's interesting to me because you'd think that well not you'd think I think it is the truth that they took that time to show what their priorities were, um, and their priorities were trans children, and who knows? Like it's just
Well, and
it was a
I mean,
parade of
the fraud stuff
crazy.
has been a lot of what they have been pushing, and I think that has legs. And there was another you know story that has come out that potentially the state miscoded $113 million worth of money, which now we have to pay back to the feds. And the real big story is that the February forecast, which is the budget forecast, which then tells the legislature essentially how much money do you have, came back slightly worse both in we had a 600 something $1 million budget surplus for this year for this cycle, and that got reduced down to 500 something. But in the out years, we're up to about a $6 billion budget deficit, which is a big deal. So now at the Capitol, there's a huge blame game because we had $18 billion, we spent $18 billion, and now we're facing a big old deficit, $6 billion. How much of that, because we're in a cycle right now where they're trying to set the budget for the next 2 years. How much of that future deficit do you try to take care of now? And there's really only a couple ways to do it. You either reduce spending or you raise revenue. And I don't think that the Democrats have the votes to raise revenue, nor probably the more moderate ones don't have a desire. So right now it's the Republicans saying you spent all the money because you took one-time money and put it towards ongoing programs, and now we don't have enough money for it.
And the economy is tanking,
Well,
which is
a-
what the forecast literally is, and why and so here's my message to Democrats in the legislature: start acting like as proud as your achievements as you were when you voted for them, and for those of you who weren't in the legislature, just figure it out. Talk to your colleagues who were, because the reality is that when we pass things like school lunches for kids, incredibly popular, and feeding kids improves educational outcomes, and it's having wonderful impacts. When we pass things like paid family medical leave, those are things that working people need. And so in a state where we have like the richest 1% own a third of the wealth, um, just put on your big boy pants and big girl pants, all of you, and demand revenue, just like they are going to demand cuts. Because if what we're going to see is Democrats just caving to Republicans on this, like both sides have equal pressure
Javier, there aren't just boy pants and girl pants. Well, you walked into that one, my friend. Woohoo! And anyway, but I think you're partially right. I mean, I think that the Democrats were extremely proud of what they did the last 2 years, and that propelled Tim Walz onto the presidential ticket. But for doing all of those progressive things, Tim Walz would not have been anywhere near on anyone's radar to be Kamala Harris's vice president. And I do think it is kind of bizarre that there does seem to be a fair amount of sheepishness in kind of celebrating the things that
tax the freaking rich, people.
Well, and that's not and that's not what they're going to do. And I think that you can blame Trump. You can say that the economy is going down, but what you can't do is you can't blame him for this yet, because the forecast was based on like February 10th numbers.
But here's the thing: what we're talking about is and what this and what politics is about, especially at the legislature, is the next 2-year cycle, and the next 2-year cycle is going to be an election about tariffs, about inflation, about the absolute recklessness that is happening right now, that like just left and right. It is the insanity with Canada, the insanity with all this, like it's gonna be nationalized. And it is absolutely true that the thing that has changed is Donald Trump. And the fact is, just let us all recall that under Joe Biden, when he came in after Donald Trump mishandled COVID, there were universal predictions of a recession that did not happen. That did not happen. Right now, Donald Trump comes in, and immediately we're hearing about like he himself wouldn't rule out a recession happening when he was interviewed this weekend by Maria Bartiromo. So like not exactly a hardball interview there. And that's the reality of what we have. So what Democrats need to do is to stop acting like wusses, stand up for what you believe in, stand up to the folks, to the jackass who's running the country and who's like making enemies of every friend the United States has ever had, and defend your values and defend all the things that you did. Don't like.
Did you see the election in Greenland last night?
Yeah. Was you see the
Center right?
Like center right anti-American, center right and anti-American.
They
No, the thing that what they ran on was literally on opposing Donald Trump. No. Yes, that is true. It is true. It is true. And the resurrection of the Liberal Party in Canada, they were dead in the water, and now they're back because everyone's like mad at the United States and mad at Donald Trump. So
I think what the message from Greenland is they don't want to be controlled by Copenhagen. They don't want to be controlled by Washington, D.C. either, but they definitely want to engage with us, and I think that's going to improve what we need without having to actually, take over the country. And I'm not even saying that that this would have been on my radar at all. I'm not saying that this is something that Trump did right. I'm just saying that I think that's what Greenland wants to do, and I think that probably is in Greenland's best options. But here's the thing: the economy. We had a huge projected budget deficit before Trump got elected. When everyone thought that Kamala was going to be president, we still had a $5 billion projected budget deficit in Minnesota. So I mean, I just think it's disingenuous to be blaming Trump on this. You're going to have lots of things to blame Trump for.
No.
He was going to give you every day. He's going to give you something new, but you cannot blame this deficit on him yet. If it goes to 7, 8, 9 billion, I will let you do it. But right now, going from 5 to almost 6, you can't say that those 10 days is what did it.
I'm just saying it doesn't matter. But the reality that we have now is that it's going to be much harder to do anything. How are they even going to balance a budget when, you have Minnesota Republicans in the legislature begging Minnesota Republicans in the Congress to stand up for Medicaid because of the disastrous effects that's going to have on the budget. So, we're not going to have a balanced budget. We're going to have chaos. So, Democrats, you might as well stand up for your values. And the reality is that the things that were passed that were popular, if they needed to be funded by permanent taxes on the rich, then tax the freaking rich.
That's how you're supposed to do it. Not using one-time money for ongoing spending, and that's why we're in this problem. And there's only a couple different, like I said, there's 2 ways to handle it, or 3 ways. You can raise taxes, you can cut spending, or you can do a mixture of the two. And I don't think anything with tax increases is really on the table. So.
Yeah.
It does think, and Javier, you were on another hiatus. So we've talked about, I don't understand why the Democrats just seem so befuddled by Trump. He befuddles
Don't
them.
get me damn started on those damn paddles. They were at a freaking auction. Like, what the hell? I mean, I just it was such an embarrassing night to be a Democrat.
He's talking about the addressing of Congress.
The addressing of Congress, the not State of the Union, but State of the Union speech. Just I think AOC actually did a much better job of just staying home and doing an Instagram live and taking questions and talking to Democrats about what they want to hear, and explaining what is going on. Right now, you have people across the country mobilized against Musk's craziness. You have an army of people. I personally know individuals who've been politicized because they're losing their jobs in the federal government, in the Veterans Administration, in fact. And the fact that Democrats can't find a way to message against him, you should be having a daily press briefing about everything that is going on. And just the the sheer impotence, and Hakeem Jeffries standing up and saying like, well, we can't do anything because we don't control everything. Do you think that's how they act when they are in the minority? This is not a hypothetical question. We know how they act when they're in the minority. They screw things up. They do they make it their job to, like, you know, when Mitch McConnell said, my job is to ensure that Barack Obama is not reelected. That's not his job as a senator, but it was his job as a politician. That's how they act when they're in the minority. Our freaking party acts like damn idiots. Sorry.
No.
Yeah. It's just it is bananas to me. It honestly, like, I've been a Democrat my whole damn life, and just like looking at what has happened and this is not a good solution, because it's not a quick one, but Mexico was ruled by a single party for decades after the Mexican Revolution, and it was a party that eventually became extremely corrupt. And the opposition for a long time was a conservative party, until a third party emerged that was progressive, and that's who the last president AMLO and the current president, who has an 80% approval rating, come from. And I have, for the first time in my adult life, I started to think, I think this party maybe is just hopeless. Like, it's so damn impossible to get folks like to just figure out how to talk to regular people, to meet their needs, and then to represent that in government, and find a way of being an opposition. Like the sort of the just rolling back because he won this time. Yes, he did, and that sucks. It sucks. Believe me, it was my job to try to like make sure that did not happen. We're all depressed about it. The difference is you were elected to leadership, and so again, ask yourselves, how would they act? How did they act? And act like that.
I asked this question last week. You weren't here, so I'm going to ask you. Who's the leader of the Democrat Party right now?
There is none.
Who's the closest? It's not Jeffries, right?
I think no. I mean, I think
Pelosi. I mean, who's?
It depends. I think what you mean by what, like in DC, like who's controlling things.
Well, like who's calling the plays? Nobody.
I think Senate strategy is Chuck Schumer, and I've heard that our senior senator is like involved with that. I don't know. I'm hoping the two of them did not come up with the paddles, but who knows? I honestly don't. I don't know. I think this, but this is the question itself is a symptom of the problem that I'm describing. Is that you have an army of people across the country. Like, let me tell you, people are turning out in droves to immigrant rights allies across the country. Thousands of people are showing up to immigrant rights trainings to help defend their neighbors from deportation. There is enormous energy out there. And people are showing up to town halls and all this. The fact that there is no good answer to your question. I think there are niche, right? Like, if you like, I think Jasmine Crockett has like an increasingly big following, and AOC. It's people who are standing up and fighting. I think Chris Murphy is someone who people are turning to. And then you have other people. There are Democrats.
I don't even know who two of those three people are.
Yeah. We're having to build a bench, right? Yeah. But there are Democrats, and I think, and this I would include our senior senator, who's like there was this piece in the Times a few weeks ago. There's basically like, oh well, the election shows that Americans want people to work together. That is the weirdest lesson to take from this. That people voted for a guy who's who promised mass deportations, who promised tariffs, like that. Do you think they're asking you to work well together? Whatever. There are Democrats who, no matter, every time we get shellacked, they think the answer to the question is we got to act more like Republicans. Like that. Is that what they do? Like, but Congresswoman Angie Craig, she voted for the most heinous legislation, Lake and Riley, which will become the Iraq war vote of the future. That bill removes due process to immigrants. And if you want to know what that happens, this is going to be my spank. Look up the case of the Columbia University student, the student who with a visa who has been disappeared. We're living in like this is like Argentina in the 1970s. That's what you voted for, Angie Craig.
I was talking to a well-known local DFLer today, and they were asking me, is Angie Craig going to make her decision in the very near future whether she's staying put in the second congressional district, running for governor, or running for Senate? I'm sorry, running for Senate or for governor. And you're closer to all that than I am. I don't know what the timing is, but it certainly seems like she's going to be running for Senate. I think
That's I think it's clear she's lining up commitments for that. And to labor unions who are considering supporting her. I just have one thing to say to you, especially building trades unions that are diverse in your membership. Think of all your members, not just your white members. That's all.
Okay. Friend of the program, former state senator Melissa Franzen, she has thrown her name into the race to run for Senate. It's interesting. She left her job at the University of Minnesota. She had been the minority leader for the Senate Democrats. She had been redistricted into a seat with Senator Ron Latz. She did not run, and then went to the U. She is somebody who, I mean, and I know that you're friends with her, so I'm not looking to have you say anything untoward. But would you consider her from the progressive wing or the more moderate wing of your party?
She's definitely from the moderate wing, because I mean, I would say like she was a leader on driver's licenses, and when she was in the legislature, there were a few key issues like on cannabis, but she was she was elected to it, but did she beat a Republican incumbent, or it had been a Republican seat, and then she won.
I remember it was, and the names are going to escape me, but I do think she beat a Republican. Yeah. His name is escaping me right
now. And so she's always been sort of considered sort of a moderate. She was leader of the caucus when in 22 when we won the majority, when we won the trifecta, and then was paid for that. We already knew because of redistricting. Like Ron Latz just like immediately announced without even talking to her. It was like crazy. I think she should have run there. A lot of my friends were very frustrated with her for not standing up to him. So but it's interesting because her announcement, I mean, like, obviously I'm with Peggy Flanagan. She's my comadre. I adore her. But Melissa's announcement just seemed like she was running as the progressive. But I think I would imagine that leading the caucus in that time, that you build up I still say Rolodex, date myself. Yeah. Like you build up a contact list of a lot of big donors, right? Especially, and a lot of corporate donors, because like they can take corporate money as the caucus, right? That's right. The caucus is can take corporate.
You set up a federal PAC, and then you can do all kinds of.
But whatever. But I would think that Rolodex is the same Rolodex as Angie Craig.
Yeah.
So they're going to be fighting over the same donors, I would think.
I mean, I think she's in a little bit of a goofy position because I don't think she can out progressive Peggy, right, and I don't think she can out moderate Angie, and that puts her in the middle. And maybe that's a good place to be. Maybe it's not. But I do think that she and Angie Craig are going to be trying to kind of occupy the same pieces of real estate. If my minute understanding of how the DFL party works, I would say that Peggy Flanagan has a really good shot of getting endorsed, and then the real fight is going to be in the primary. But if there are more than one person from the moderate wing, then that does not play in their favor.
Yeah. No, and I think like the thing, obviously, my circle of Democrats, I'd say just in general, I would say Democrats, it's been interesting that because Amy Klobuchar has been there for a very long time, and Amy has a reputation of kind of playing it safe, right? she's always the one boldly standing up to the special interests who want to charge you for your suitcases and things like that, and is generally considered a moderate in DC, and for Democrats. There was a lot of frustration with Amy, like a lot, and so then we had.
And I don't know if you said her name. We're not talking about Amy Koch. We're talking about Amy Klobuchar.
Amy Klobuchar, yes, and then like what we had like Al Franken as the liberal senator, and then we had like Tina Smith, who was always like often took votes to the left of Amy's. So like what I have heard, from just anecdotal is like, do we need another Amy in the Senate? And I think that'll be a tougher slog with a lot of Democratic voters, especially Democratic voters who are furious at their party for not standing up to Donald Trump.
Are there any other notable names that have said that they're in? Like David Wellstone was talking about, son of former Senator Paul Wellstone. He was talking about making a run. I'm not sure if he's all the way in or not.
No, I think honestly, like what has happened is that there are reporters chasing stories, and they put a microphone in front of everyone, and they ask Melissa Hortman, and she's like not ruling it out. And there's a story like she's not ruling it out, but she's not. If she's not doing a damn thing, I don't think that's but I heard someone say like you don't turn down a job you haven't been offered yet or something like that, and so there's a lot of that going around. So I don't know if was it David or which of the two sons?
I thought it was David, but I could be remembering.
So I have no idea. I don't know David. I don't know if he's serious about running or if it was just one of these like possibly I think about it. But the only names I've heard for sure that Angie Craig is starting to work and get commitments, and that and Melissa Lopez Franzen who joined. So it's like so far just 3 women.
And then let's just say that Angie Craig decides that she's going to run for Senate. Who do you guys think is going to run for her seat in the second congressional? I've heard Aaron Maquaid, someone who's been a guest host on the program here. Certainly she is far to the left of Angie Craig, and for people who maybe don't follow it as closely as others, the second congressional district where I live
is like the most evenly split.
It's the most evenly split in the country, and it would go back Republican Democrat, and then this year Angie Craig won it by like 14 points. I know that the DCCC is a little upset that she's going to leave there because it immediately probably goes back to a 50-50 seat depending on who the Republicans pick and who the Democrats pick. But I don't know that someone who is not Angie Craig is going to have the same kind of results.
Well, and even Angie Craig, like it took her a while to build the credibility with the electorate there. So I mean that is what I have heard about DC rumors is just what you said, that there are a lot of folks in her caucus who are upset that she's even thinking about it because how much did she win by this time?
I thought it was like 14.
It was like 14 points. Like that. Yeah, that she made a seat that she'd squeaked by twice before, suddenly safe. So, and she was also skipped 2 people with greater seniority for a ranking position on the Ag Committee.
Ag Committee, yeah. Well, it's gonna get spicy here in Minnesota, and
yes,
it's not over yet. So Javier, you're somebody who identifies very strongly with the city of St. Paul.
Yeah,
you love the city of St. Paul. You want to make sure it stays boring.
I'm not as invested in the boring part. But yes, sure.
Without like trying to extrapolate it into something that it's not, how big of a deal is the downtown St. Paul Lunds and Byerly's going away? I know people that live in that general area, and it is extraordinarily disruptive. And we have kind of seen the St. Paul. I think Minneapolis gets kicked around way more than St. Paul does, but St. Paul has many of the same problems with fentanyl and homelessness and now adding onto it kind of a lack of access to things that you need to live very, very well in the city of St. Paul, especially if you're older, if you have any kind of a disability. So how big of a deal is this?
It is a very big deal. I think like that. I heard this week too, and it was just like that. I think the last restaurant or eatery or something in Mears Park closed to
Which is where my wife Jenny lived when I met her. So I used to spend a lot of time there, and it was getting to be the cool new spot.
Yes, because light rail, like a lot of people moved that that and had access to jobs like if they worked in Minneapolis and like there are all kinds of it is so frustrating and it is particularly frustrating to me because my council member represents the West Side and downtown St. Paul and and the decline has been steady and consistent. I mean, St. Paul has had there's been a long-term problem that I think in part is like this cultural thing about being the stepchild to Minneapolis. Like one time our tourism, whatever our tourism city board, yeah, they actually
Department.
they actually put something else calling us the stepchild. I'm like, could you not but
I mean, I like the things
but I
about St. Paul that are different than Minneapolis.
but I well, and also like our downtown needs to be sold differently. I think there is like I've not paid attention to the commercial office real estate market as much as I used to when I was head of the janitors union because I had to then, but at the time, right, that there was a lot of class 2 office space in St. Paul and class B or I don't know how to in class A in Minneapolis. But there's like with all the talk nationally of converting office space into residential, like there's a lot of space to convert into residential in downtown St. Paul. We just like we need a mini kind of Marshall Plan, and we need like leaders to focus on it. Yeah, no, it's terrible. It's terrible because there's a condo there are condos right that are part of that building that Lens is in, and across the street there they you started to get a thriving little started people move in. So no, it's very sad. It sucks.
Yeah, in the Mears Park area that you talked about, that's called Lower Town, and Lower Town was like the new Uptown.
Yeah.
And there were cool bars there. I mean, the Bulldog and Barrio and all kinds of World of Beers was there. I think World of Beers closed just because Jenny and I would go there on football days, and they had bottomless mimosas. So
I went there once with Michael Mother and Peggy,
yeah,
and we were hanging out, and we ordered a whole bunch of food, ordered too much food, and then at one point the waiter came over and was flirting with her,
yeah.
and I said to her, "Oh, I thought he thought we were a couple," and she looked at me and said, "You're wearing an Adele T-shirt." So, if that doesn't get your vote for Peggy Flanagan,
Yeah, it's pretty funny.
she's funny.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. All right, so looking at national, we talked about Trump, we talked about Musk. We could talk a little bit about Kamala for governor. Is she going to be running for governor?
I don't know. It says that I doubt that. That just seems like a
If you're
Why-
her,
why-
if you're her, why would you want to do that?
that's what I think.
Because Newsom's not leaving it in good standing. So she'll have to pick up the wildfire issues, all the economic issues that they have in that state. And after that long, I guess it wasn't that long, the 90-day presidential run, you'd think that she would want to just lay off. But
Yeah.
what do I know?
Yeah.
I'm
Who
not the
knows?
boss of her.
But
So-
I don't understand about the Musk thing. Like all of these, so the cabinet finally rebelled, like on the
yeah,
donor cuts.
they had to rein him in.
They rein him in. But all these Republicans who are publicly like so pro Elon, like when his and just I think was it today or yesterday that Donald Trump like bought a Tesla,
Yeah.
like and then so like first of all you guys need to decide how you feel about global warming and about like electric cars, like because it's the whiplash is intense, but also like I mean goes without saying, but we're a government, we're a kleptocracy, so and a oligarchy, but the actual hawking of a product on the lawn of the White House. Good God.
I don't know. I mean, yes, we all know what's going on. I mean, I'm not gonna bullshit you and say, oh well, Biden, was driving one too and he was, and I get it. And this is treated differently because it is different. Um, a friend of mine, friend of the program, who's not a dick and listens to the show, told me today that she wants to sell her Tesla and can't because the market has
Yeah.
tanked on them.
Because no one
And
wants
that-
to buy.
and
Because
that'll
in California, they're putting things on it saying "sell your swastika,"
yeah,
and
and that she'll have to pay $5,000 to get out of it. So
is it a lease?
I don't know.
They can't insure them. Did you guys hear that? That's why
They
a
can't.
whole bunch of insurers drop Teslas they're not an insurable vehicle. They weigh like 6,000 to 8,000 pounds.
Jeez.
It's way like
It's a good
four
winter
cars.
Good winter car.
It's a great death car. If you'd like to obliterate your neighbor or whatever, if you run into them, and then they don't have crumple zones.
Do you mean like a murder car?
It's a murder car. It's more of a murder car than yeah. I choose to look at it as a protect yourself car at others' expense.
Hey, when the shit goes down, you got to get out. You got to get out of town because the zombies or the whoever are coming. You're gonna want that big ass Tesla.
Perfect car for that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And also if you care about global warming while you're fleeing the city.
And then they can fall into the concrete on a hot day, but also they don't have crumple zones
Yeah. But
because it's stainless steel.
But I started asking just about like people just like full-throatedly Republicans defending Elon and without seemingly sort of thinking, what do you think Elon's getting out of this? And I would recommend that folks listen to a podcast that Kara Swisher was the guest on the focus group podcast with from the Bulwark folks, and she gave the clearest explanation of what Trump is getting out of it. Is what I was talking about earlier. Is like that he's in competition with Sam Altman on AI, on who has the best AI machine, and the biggest treasure trove of stored data in the world is United States government, and that's what the self-interest is. He's just building AI business. So I just don't like the lack of skepticism about this dude is just so like there's no way it doesn't come to bite people in the ass. But
Plugs.
it plugs. Do I have any plugs coming up? I think I'm hosting the Moth coming up. Yes, I am. Next week, Wednesday at the Parkway, I'm hosting. The theme is beef, which I think sounds lovely. It's Minnesota, so I imagine that's going to be. I'm going to have some a lot of farm, but I hope people come with like.
Hormel talk.
Hormel talk, yeah.
Or Hormel.
But I hope people also come with stories about fighting with people.
Oh, and Gabe, my wife just texted me that she can't find it on the show on YouTube. So something.
I did pop up for me finally.
I'll just rerun it after, but yeah,
right.
I'll still rerun it either way.
All right. Okay, well, for Spanx for me, I mean not Spanx, for plugs for me. Well, Amy and I every Tuesday we're on the BS show with Bob Sansevier, and then this Friday, a couple days from now, Gabe and I are road tripping to Bismarck, North Dakota, and we're going to be doing comedy with Gabe as the headliner. I'm going to be featuring Zachary Rittenhouse is going to be who we don't know is going to be the host or the opener, and we're gonna have a really good time. We've played this venue before. It's 1603 Main Events, I think it's called, and it's a cool venue. So if you're gonna be in Bismarck, which I'm sure a huge segment of our listening audience probably is, why don't you go find my social media, got some links there, buy some tickets, and come see us. Tell some jokes, but I'm looking forward to it. We're gonna have a good time. Though I did, Gabe, meet with a legislator who's from the northwest part of Minnesota today, and evidently there's some huge storm that's going to be rolling through as we're driving there. So we'll have to.
There's definitely a storm rolling into town. It's called Hurricane Gabe, and hide your hot older auntie, because here I come. Been divorced 3 years now. Come on, time to break out.
I swear I zoned out for a second because I got a text and I came back to.
We're talking about my sexual prowess.
Oh God!
It's
Guys,
coming back. It's
guys.
coming back.
No, it's not. And no one wants to hear that.
Okay.
No.
It's political.
That's not what our audience wants to hear. Please stop.
Please stop.
Like hopeful topics, but
All right. Spanks and things. Javier.
So yes, I started to talk about this, but I'm gonna talk a little bit more about this. Mahmoud Khalil was a student at Columbia who, it's important to note, has been charged with no crimes. There are no crimes even alleged. He also is a legal permanent resident, meaning he has a green card, does not have a student visa. And this weekend he was disappeared from his family. He was arrested with his wife. They got on the phone with his attorney, and his attorney pointed out that the ICE said your student visa was revoked, and the attorney said he doesn't have a student visa. He has a green card, and I said that's been revoked. ICE does not have the authority to revoke green cards. And then when his wife, who's, I should say, is both a U.S. citizen and 8 months pregnant, went to the ICE detention center that he was supposedly sent at, then they told him he was sent to New Orleans. He's now in New Orleans, and Trump is touting this and saying he's going to be deported. Expressed simply because he supports Palestinians. And even if you take the worst version of what they say is that he has expressed support for Hamas. Now, where are all the free speech purists now? It's all the people who stood like Donald Trump, who stood up for those fine people when it was Nazis exercising their free speech. Where are for the free speech purists now? When this man was without, again, no crime. He didn't even participate in the protests at Columbia. He was he negotiated on behalf of the students. That's what he did. He negotiated to try to end the standoff. That's the crime he committed, and he committed the crime of being Palestinian and believing that Palestinians are human beings and not deserving of genocide. And shame on all the right wingers and the right wing organizations that were clamoring for his deportation and the deportation of all these other folks exercising their free speech rights. It's absolutely shocking and then my thank goes to Nebraska.
Go Huskers.
Yeah. So there's this genre that has popped up on TikTok of Nebraska ranchers and farmers saying things like, one, that our state is about to go bankrupt, and that they're losing all their crops. They're being hit both by the attempted closure of USAID, because USAID, the food that it purchases, the grains and things, to feed people in foreign countries, they purchase that from U.S. farmers. But also, what they're specifically talking about is that 70% of their workforce on farms in Nebraska is undocumented. And this is my thank, because if you go on TikTok and just search Nebraska immigration, you will find a lot of people, you'll find a lot of Nebraska people saying, we're going bankrupt. Does anyone care about us? Yada. And then you'll find a lot of progressives who are with a message and a hashtag of FAFO, you effed around and found out. And I want to thank these folks, and I'm not going to take joy in your pain. I am going to ask you to question why you didn't believe the guy you voted for when he said he was going to deport everyone, and you didn't believe and you didn't think what kind of impact that would have on your workforce. And yet people are scared to come to work, so they're not coming to work, and so you're now screwed. It would be nice if you admitted that your workforce was 70% undocumented, before the election. And I want to thank you for reminding me once again what I've said a million times and will continue to say. If you are against illegal immigration, do what the Nebraskans are going to do now and live by your values and boycott food. Because if you ate today, you benefited from the labor of undocumented workers. And it's time people started naming truths and stopped giving into the bullshit of this authoritarian.
Maybe y'all saw the news out of Nebraska today. Apparently, our entire state is going to go bankrupt in 2 quarters. Me and my husband owned a cattle ranch here, and I can confirm that all of the cattle ranchers here overwhelmingly voted for Trump. We support him. We voted for him. Something like 70% of our entire workforce is undocumented immigrants, and they straight up are not showing up for work anymore. They have all either fled the country, fled the state. They don't want to get raided while at work, so they have just moved on to work somewhere else. And straight up, we are going to go bankrupt now. We are going to go bankrupt. And we voted. We knew that the immigrants would get deported and he was coming after immigrants, yet we still voted for it. Overwhelmingly voted for our own demise. I was talking to my husband last night, and I have to admit that it seems a bit foolish now when you think about it like that. That we voted for something that is now putting us directly out of business.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more.
There you go. All right. So my spank is going to be to aforementioned governor of California, Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom went on the Charlie Kirk podcast and kind of did a 180 on the trans sports debate, indicating that that biological men playing in women's sports is deeply unfair. So we've talked about this ad nauseum on the podcast. I'm not getting into that, but why it's my spank is because this effing guy is so thirsty to be the next president of the United States that he is going to completely just run away from his own pro-trans legislation that he has supported and helped pass in California. California, which became the first sanctuary state for trans youth in 2022. Example after example after example. And I guess why it's my spank is this is so obviously calculated in order to try to position himself as a moderate, or certainly more moderate, but I'm not quite sure why he is dumb enough to think that this is something that anyone is going to buy, that anyone is going to subscribe to, that anyone is going to follow after he's leaving California in shambles. And now he's going to try to be a social conservative. That is a pretty idiotic, and it might distance him in some ways from other people who are going to run for the DFL ticket, but it's also going to distance himself away from the people who are actually supposed to vote for him. So I think he's acting like a clown. I think he's been a clown in lots of different ways, and this is just a further evidence of Gavin Newsom just being a soulless politician, nepo baby, all that stuff. So he is spanked. Now, Javier.
Yes, sir.
Let me get the right one. I want to talk a little sports ball, but I'm going to need your help here. So
it's not starting out well.
There's a new, every year, one of the big things is that there are new baseball hats. And different teams come out. They kind of have different.
Oh, I know what you're going to talk about.
They have different styles, and some of them are trying to be a little wacky. And baseball's been around well over 120 something years.
There are new hats every year.
Well, not that they wear in the games, but that they sell.
Oh,
because you can sell hats that they're very very some they're just. They diverge from the actual team, and the one that caught my eye, sounds like you know a little bit about it, was the Texas Rangers.
Yes,
and the Texas Rangers, and we're going to show a picture here in a minute. They have the word Texas, and then they have the big Texas T right in the middle, and they do that for other teams too. Chicago has a big C in the middle of theirs, my Cubbies. But the Texas hat, which for those of you who are watching on YouTube, it's up on the screen now. For those of you who are not able to watch it on YouTube, I'm going to describe it to you. It's a blue hat with white lettering, rimmed in red, and with the word Texas, TEXAS, on it in script, and then a big giant T in the middle of it, which covers up the X and spells out
Tetas.
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 How would you say that, Javier?
Tetas.
Tetas.
Yes.
And that seems like it's a word. Is that a word?
It means boobies.
It means boobies. So if you are able to buy,
please get me one of these hats.
The booby hat,
because they stupidly withdrew them now.
Yeah, they gone.
They got to bring them back.
If you have one, it's probably worth something. Because
please,
they're not selling them anymore.
I want a Tetas hat. Yep. Please give me a Tetas hat.
So either someone's. Okay.
All right, Gabe.
So
that was pretty mundane.
Yeah. Yeah. So either someone is a marketing genius, or they need a better proofreader down in Arlington, Texas. But so the Tetas hat has been pulled after a backlash.
There's no way they didn't know that in Texas, right?
You can't tell me there's not 9,000 people that work for whatever company did that aren't Spanish. That are Spanish speaking.
Yeah.
No.
Or they all get sent back.
Yeah. There's no way in Texas. I mean, or someone on staff was like, hey, I'm gonna let them do it.
Yeah.
I want to buy every one of those I can. Like that's like a future collector's item for that team.
Well, I think if you probably if you
can't find them now.
Well, if you go on eBay, I bet you someone got them.
Yeah. I'm gonna look. Right. Listeners, if anyone wants to buy me a Tetas hat, I will pay premium because I don't want to do the searching myself.
Yeah. All right. With that, I am Republican strategist and Twin City Sugar, Brian McDaniel.
I am Democratic strategist and the Puerto Rican Heat, Javier Murillo.
And we are Wrong About Everything.
Take us away again.
Amy will be back next week.
NBC. No relation to NBC.